Welcome to Flashback Files, the podcast where career and leadership lessons from the past guide your journey forward. I'm Josh Green, and here we'll explore both my own experiences and the stories of others, unpacking wins, doubts, pivots, and the moments of clarity that shape us as leaders. You don't need to have it all figured out. Leadership often shows up in unexpected places, at work, at home, and in the choices we make every day. By reflecting on aspirations, mistakes, and breakthroughs, we can discover how the decisions of today build the leaders we become tomorrow. Each episode blends conversations and personal reflections, all with one purpose: to help you lead yourself first so you can lead with others with confidence, purpose, and integrity. Whether you're just starting out, making a career shift, or simply seeking more clarity in how you show up in life, this podcast is for you. Because you don't need every answer. You just need to start asking the right questions. Welcome to Flashback Files. I'm Josh Green, and today we're going to dive into ages 18 to 24. In this episode, this is where, in this age segment, I should say, it's a time when you're technically an adult, but still feel like you're faking it. This is the part where life stops being theoretical and starts being real. And just a heads up, this chapter gets a little heavier, not tragic, just real. It involves jobs, independence, friendships changing, money, stress, identity, all the things nobody prepares you for. So this is part one of 18 to 24. My first full-time job, moving out, in college. Part two will cover the internship that changed everything. So my first taste of adulthood at 18, while most my friends were finishing high school, I was already working full-time as a caretaker for the school board. And here's the weird part. The kids walking through the hallways were my age. So while they were heading to math class, I was disinfecting their desks. I'd walk past people I recognized and think, are they wondering what I'm doing here? Realistically, nobody cared, but insecurity exaggerates its own importance. That job was my crash course in adulthood. It involved 8-hour shifts, waking up early, working beside people twice my age, listening to conversations about mortgages, daycare pickups, and car payments. It hit me. This is what real life looks like. There's no bell schedule, no summers, no excuses. But here's the leadership lesson that came out of it. Even when you feel unprepared, you can rise to the level of responsibility you're given. I didn't know it then, but showing up every day was my actual first act of self-leadership. Work ethic and approval in my imposter syndrome. I actually took pride in the job. I was aware I was not going to be there forever, in the role forever, as I had plans to go to college, but I cared. Looking back, it wasn't maturity. It was my need for approval. I wanted adults to see me and think, wow, he works hard. But here's the twist. Even if it came from insecurity, the habit stuck. Work ethic out of insecurity is still work ethic. Sometimes your flaws accidentally teach you discipline. I'd felt like an imposter as a young manager at McDonald's. Then I felt like an imposter as a caretaker. But it kept pushing me to prove, not to others, but to myself. You belong here and you can do this. That's a truth most new professionals learn. Confidence doesn't come first, competence does. During lunch breaks, I remember I'd sit alone and brainstorm business ideas. I had no clue how business worked. Zero knowledge, absolutely zero. But something in me kept imagining a bigger life. I'd debate with myself. Could this idea work? Would anyone buy this? I didn't realize it, but that was my first taste of entrepreneurship. Selling ideas to myself before selling them to anyone else. My friend Sammy and I were both planning to go to college, as I mentioned. University wasn't in the budget. So we sat with a college course guide. It was massive. And because we were geniuses, we started at A. Whatever started with A got our attention first. That's how we ended up choosing advertising media sales. Not because we were destined for it, but because it became before baking and biology. Sometimes big life choices are made for really small reasons. We found student housing across from campus, just two kids trying to feel like adults. We both had serious partners, and everybody knew we were just friends. And honestly, it worked. We trusted each other. We had a plan. Going from a medium-sized city to Toronto was culture shock. Where I was from, people said hi as you walked past them. In Toronto, nobody even made eye contact. People on the subway stare straight through you. I went from being the only visible minority in my class to being part of the majority. That messed with my head a little bit. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or invisible. But here's what I learned later. You cannot judge a place, a culture, or a group of people based on a single moment. A city isn't one experience, it's millions. So the first year of school, it was hard. It was a demanding course. I had a long distance girlfriend. I was working weekends at McDonald's, and I was broke 95% of the time. Sammy and I had a poor student tradition set up. So this involves sharing cheap dinners, movie nights at home, and heading to our part-time jobs together. Then she started going home more. She was feeling homesick, missing her boyfriend, missing her family. Eventually, she opted out of the program. And spoiler alert for her, she ended up becoming very successful in her career. So it looked like she made the right decision. But at the time, I was then suddenly alone. I kept the Toronto room, over the summertime. So the first year ended of school, went back home, rented the room out in Toronto, so I stayed there. But then I went back home to pretty much be around my girlfriend more often. And I ended up getting a summer job thanks to my girlfriend's uncles. One owned a dealership and the other was a manager. So here is networking is showing up again. What was the job? I was a car wash guy. Every day, soaking wet from the pressure washer, smelling like soap and oil, I'd place 2 mints in the cup holder of each car after washing the cars to exemplify a luxury. In the lunchroom, mechanics would vent about the sales team, the owner, the customers, and here I was, the kid with ties to management. That was my first real lesson in professional discretion. Not everything you hear should be repeated. Some things just stay in the room. This is outside of being respectful of people's safety, etc. Not because of loyalty, but because trust is currency. When I went back to Toronto, my second year was lonely. I made friends in class, but they'd go out often and I couldn't afford it. Weekends were spent working, so I built a routine. I would go to the gym, go to school, go home, do homework, and repeat. Fitness became my therapy very quickly. When you can't control money, grades, relationships, or stress, you control your body. And it was the first time I realized that discipline could create stability. And being alone taught me something huge. You don't need constant company to grow. Sometimes isolation is an incubator. When I remember a friend of mine in the program, he was pretty much the smartest in the class. Him and I bonded really fast. He actually didn't know it, but he kept me motivated from a distance. And sometimes the best mentorship isn't formal. It's just someone who forces you to level up without saying a word. He was that person for me. In the final semester, it was internship time. So our professors tapped the top students on the shoulders first in terms of getting us acquainted with agencies that we could do internships with. And I was one of them. So here we go in an indirect way, networking striking again. I went off on 2 interviews, failed the first and crushed the second. I landed on an entertainment advertising agency. And what they did there was purchase media and made planned media campaigns for movies, music festivals, and concerts. And for a kid who once wanted to act, this felt like the jackpot, but it wasn't. That internship, it shaped me more than anything that came before it. Not in the inspiring way, but in the very hard way. It exposed every insecurity I had ever buried. Confidence, identity, belonging. It took years to recover from, but there were lessons, big ones, about leadership, about mental health, about self-worth, and about the workplace no one prepares you for. So that's part 2 that we'll get into later. Thanks for listening. If you're in this phase of life right now, working your first job, moving out, feeling like you're supposed to have answers, just know you're not behind, you're building. We'll see you in part 2. Thanks for listening.